Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man. Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man. Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man. Spectacular.
I know this may be a little bit of a controversial opinion, but I love this movie. Like, I know some people weren't very fond of it, saying it's too simple, or it's too blasé, or too bland, or, too focused on the Iron Man part rather than the Spider-Man part. Whatever haters say. But, I love this movie. I always have loved this movie, and I'm gonna tell you exactly why. What's up, what's happening, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station, on one-stop station for anything and everything animation, including sometimes live action, in this case, our friendly neighborhood webhead. Spider-Man Homecoming. After the horrible jump off a cliff that was Amazing Spider-Man 2, Sony was finally forced to sign some deals with Disney and Marvel Studios to allow Spider-Man into the MCU. Technically, his introduction was Captain America Civil War. I know that. But I'm not going to review that movie because that's a Captain America movie. I'm going to save that for I get around to covering the whole MCU. But I'm going to cover just the Spider-Man trilogy, okay? Just want to get that out of the way because I know that that's a very important part, because Captain America Civil War was Spider-Man's introduction to the MCU. It was the part from the trailer that got everyone hyped. Like, there wasn't even hints about it or nothing. It just came out of nowhere in one trailer, and everyone's hype just went up. And that movie's awesome in its own right. But this is Spider-Man's first solo movie in the MCU. Well, solo's maybe a bit of a bad term, but you know what I mean. It's the first one that focuses on him, that focuses on Tom Holland's Peter Parker, and pretty much him trying to become a big-time hero, wanting more. Like, you guys know what I mean. I have been a huge fan of the MCU Spider-Man for a while now. Yes, I'm a Tobey fanboy first and foremost. That's not changing. But I love Tom Holland's version. Like, they really focus on the teenage aspect of this movie, and that's what I really like about it. And no, don't worry, it's not an origin story again. This is something different. This is actually taking place after the origin story and after the events of Civil War. In this movie, what this movie really nails is that simplicity, because simplicity can be your greatest strength if it's utilized correctly. Actually, hold on. I forgot to show this off earlier. I'm going to take you guys for a little trip. Right there. Yes, that is a giant framed poster of Homecoming I have hanging on my wall. It's not signed or anything, but I got it for a pretty good deal. So, yep, that's always been back there. Unfortunately, you don't really see it in videos because of the way I handle the camera. It's always in this angle here where you can always see up to there. But yeah, that's sitting back there, and it's one of the most prized pieces in my collection. So, yeah, I was obviously excited for this movie, and I walked out of it very satisfied. I thought this was a great movie. I thought it was a fantastic movie. And again, I feel like its strength is in its simplicity and its villain. We're going to get to the villain in a minute. I want to focus on Tom Holland himself first. He's a dang good Spider-Man. Like, I'm not sure if I like him more than Tobey or Andrew, but I really like him. I really like how they focused on his teenage aspects, how he's struggling with that balance that we all know Spider-Man for, trying to balance his real life with his superhero life. And I especially really like in this movie how he has this drive, how he has this want and desire to be a bigger time hero. But then by the end, he realizes that maybe being a small-time hero is better for him. Like, I really like that. Not to mention it's great character development, and yeah, he doesn't make the best decisions, but at the same time, he's a teenager, so you can kind of understand that.
Not to mention, I feel like a lot like Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, I do really buy Tom Holland as a teenager, as Peter Parker, because A, he's young, well, he was young back then. Two, he definitely acts like a teenager. And three, he really just embodies that kind of Peter Parker. Not to mention, I also really like how this one not only gave Spider-Man a unique suit that's very, very unique from everything that came before with all the added tech, but where was I going? Shoot. Sorry, I just have so much to praise about this movie, I don't even know where to start, but yeah, Tom Holland is an excellent Peter Parker, an excellent Spider-Man. I love the spider suit's design. Very unique, very different, even though, yes, it is the same one from from Civil War, I know, but it's still really cool. And I also really like the dialogue in this movie. It doesn't have, like, angstiness to it. Like, it doesn't have that gritty adult edge that, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man had. But I feel like that's also kind of to the benefit, because while this movie is definitely very uptone most of the time and quite silly, it's not afraid to have some dark moments. And I feel like that's what really makes this movie work. They doubled down on the high school aspects, which is great. They doubled down on the teenage stuff. The dialogue's really good. All the characters are actually quite likable. And you can see how some of them transition throughout the movie. But let's be honest, the biggest reason why this movie is as great as it is because of that villain. Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. Yes, the definitive live-action Batman is playing the villain. And it's just as amazing as you'd expect it to be. Like, at first when I heard this casting, I'm like, wait a minute, a Batman actor is going to be in a Spider-Man movie as the villain? How are they going to make that work? Well, because he's a multi-layered villain. He's not your typical MCU villain that's, bad for the sake of being bad. Like, he has a reason, he has a drive, he has a motivation, and he's very complex in his character, and his motivations are also kind of understandable, He's trying to provide for his family, and also take a stand against the rich people that just coast by while he has to work as hard as he can day in and day out to provide for his family and to stay alive, pretty much. Like, it's dark, but it's not super dark. It's not like drastically obnoxiously dark. Like, I really like Adrian Toomes in this movie. And at first when I thought Vulture was going to be the villain, I'm sitting there rolling my eyes like, Vulture? Really? Out of all the villains you could have picked, you picked Vulture? But they nailed it. Like, he's such a great Vulture, he's such a great villain, and he's just an all-around really cool character. Michael Keaton absolutely nailed it. And not to mention, he sold being villainous when he needed to be. Like, that was my biggest fear. I was afraid that I would be like, okay, he's going to try to act villainous, it's not going to work, and I'm going to keep having images of Batman in my head. But no, he really blends into this role to the point where he doesn't act anything like he does as Batman. He's not a hero. He's not trying to, save the world or anything like that. He's just trying to provide for his family in the only way he knows how, by salvaging ancient tech. Well, alien tech, but you know what I mean. And I know a lot of people say that having Tony Stark in this movie is definitely a bit of a problem, because it definitely feels like it's not focusing on Spider-Man. Well, yes, Tony Stark is in it, and he's in it very prominently, but he plays a mentor role. And I feel like as a mentor, he's pretty good. Like, he works to help also develop Peter's character, despite the fact that Peter, goes against his word for most of the movie. But it works out. And in the end, in that scene where it turns out it was all a test, like, that was really smart. And not to mention, the way he develops Peter's character, it's really cool. Yes, I know a lot of people say, well, okay, then it's Tony Stark Jr. No. Peter is still Peter. He just has a little bit of help, unlike he does in the other movies. Which I think is a nice change of pace and really, makes this one unique. Not to mention, I love Tony and Peter's dynamic of the mentor and student. Even though the student can be a bit brash and arrogant, the mentor is giving him tough love. Much needed tough love at that. Not to mention, the writing's really good, and this is really funny. Like, the movie's dialogue is funny. Like, almost every single line that came out of Peter's mouth, that came out of Ned's mouth, that came out of MJ's mouth, like, I was laughing. Like, it's really good dialogue that really fits the tone. And before you say, okay, that's being too cheesy. No, cheesiness has always been a part of Spider-Man. Like, even in the Andrew Garfield movie, there was some cheesiness. So, cheese is always going to be a part of Spider-Man's cinematic DNA. So, I didn't mind that. And I actually kind of liked how goofy and over the top it was. Not to mention, this Spider-Man feels a bit more comic accurate than even to Andrew Garfield's. Not just because it goes back to the red and blue suit, but also because, again, it's not organic webbing. It's web shooters again. And again, just like in Amazing Spider-Man, they do a great job highlighting that fact and the way it plays out in a few scenes where you can see, like, him popping out web cartridges or having this secret stash under a whole bunch of lockers in his school where he puts all his web fluid that he secretly makes in chemistry class. Like, it's all really unique and interesting. And then the action's really good. Like, this movie's really hard to explain. Like, it's just a movie that works and is very entertaining, very funny, and just all around a lot of fun to watch. With a great villain, great writing, a cool spider suit, excellent performances, fantastic action, and a simple but very strong story. That's really the fastest and most easiest way I can explain to you why this movie is so good. Not to mention the things that happen in the background. Like, this is the movie where we say goodbye to the Avengers Tower that's been there since the 2012 movie, and we go all the way to the new place that pops up in Age of Ultron. I believe it was Age of Ultron? No, not Age of Ultron. Oh wait, no, it is in Age of Ultron. Well, the place we started to see in Age of Ultron, but it wasn't like the actual Avengers hideout yet. You know what I mean. That little thing that hides in the background. That's what's so great about this movie. Because it keeps the main focus on Peter Parker, on Spider-Man, but it keeps moving around little things in the background. And it's not intrusive, it doesn't try to mess with the plot, it doesn't feel like it's fighting for screen time, like, it flows all naturally. And I feel like that's this movie's big advantage. I'm sorry, I know I'm going on and on and on, but trust me, this movie's awesome, and you guys need to watch it if you haven't already. And yeah, after Amazing Spider-Man 2 being such a colossal failure, this was the reset that Spider-Man needed. And I really, really enjoyed this movie. I know that might be a bit controversial because I know some people think it's too safe or it's too silly, but I really enjoyed this movie. And I think it is still one of the highlights of the MCU. Final verdict for Spider-Man Homecoming is going to be a high... Ooh, am I going to give it an 8 or am I going to give it a 9? 9 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Just on the pure entertainment factor alone, this one more than is worth watching. I know that, I know it's a bit controversial, and like I said, Maguire fanboy first and foremost, but Tom Holland is a great Spider-Man. This is a great start to, in my opinion, a very strong trilogy, while also setting up really cool things to happen in the MCU as it goes on. Now, yes, I know that technically the next Spider-Man adjacent movies would be Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, because Far From Home takes place right after Endgame and is kind of like the epilogue chapter to that phase of the MCU. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch those movies, but I'm not going to review them. Not yet, because I'm saving up a month of sometime either this year or next year where I just plow through the entire MCU. Specifically, here on Animation Station. So, yeah, but if I think a movie's crap, I'm going to move it to Cinema Sand 77 so I don't have to censor everything. But, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I will rewatch them, but I'm not going to review them until I actually have an MCU month. What month that'll be, I don't know. I still have yet to figure out the details, but you'll know when I know, okay? I'll put it that way. Anyway, that's all I got. See you guys next time for the excellent and extremely underrated Spider-Man Far From Home.